Coach Kaeo Drummondo, how are you, Coach? Good. Great to see you again. Well, let's run down your roster, your young roster, young Bulls. The Hilo Bulls were a semi-pro team in Hilo way back in the 90s. They're studs. Your Bulls are different from week one. They're different from spring ball. Yeah, what's the biggest mentality change?
Just experience. You know, I mean, I've said it before. There's no substitution for it. You know, there's no substitution for live reps. So we have 10 games under our belt now. So it's just them going through live reps, facing adversity, seeing themselves do well, seeing themselves make mistakes, learning from it. Then the more games you play, you know, typically the better you should get.
Last year's team, they had success early, traveling to Iolani, went back home. This year's team, I'm not sure if you guys traveled in preseason, so it was probably a good thing to just work on the younger guys.
We came and we got beat up from Campbell.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, that was, the ironic thing about our matchup this year is early on in the spring, we actually had a matchup against Waipahu scheduled. And then circumstances with me changed and circumstances with that preseason game changed. So we ended up switching from Waipahu to Campbell. So we ended up coming August 4th. We came here and played Campbell. So it's a tough game for us physically. It's a tough game on a scoreboard, but you know, I think the lessons that the players who traveled that game learned, it goes a long way.
Yeah, the game speed that you guys saw in that game, Campbell was very good this year. A little bit young, but physical, and they were healthy at the time. People forget, like now they're getting, you know, banged up. Guys are out. You guys played the fresh, healthy Campbell team, so they ended up top 4 in the state, in open. So the question I asked you, I guess, last week was, is Hilo ready to make a move? And you said, well, maybe down the road, develop a little more depth, right? But Division I is a good fit for Hilo.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. I mean, look, if we had the big bulls up front, year in and year out, on both sides of the ball, you know, maybe I'd sing a different tune. But you know, I mean, in the state of Hawaii, if you really look at the overall picture, I mean, you have Mililani, you have Farrington, you have Kapolei, you have Campbell, you have Kahuku. I mean, year in and year out, they can match up front, you know, for the most part.
Numbers-wise, especially, they can withstand injuries.
You know, the overall depth, and then just the overall depth of physicality. You know, you look at the open schools this year with the tough schedule, how much injuries, you know, the big schools are having. So I would hate to have to put, you know, for our players to go through that gauntlet week in and week out. It'll be tough, you know. It's just the reality of what it is, you know. Would I like to say that we could? Well, of course I would, but you got to be realistic with yourself as well. Yeah.
Well, if this was an earlier time and there was no Waikeo and no Kamehameha Keao,
I think it'll be a lot different.
Then that'd be a lot different.
If you could combine, even if the Hilo side had 2 schools instead of 4, I think you could, you know, create enough depth and physicality to play more of the open teams maybe. But it's a tough gauntlet. You know how everything is set up where we have kids from that side being split into 4 schools. It's hard.
Well, all this is spurred by St. Louis being just a giant machine, just an incredible program, and the rest of the ILH having no district line. So that's where people are like, oh, why not this, why not that? Why doesn't Lahaina move on? There's all these questions, but then the answer is they're just public schools with district lines. Yeah. So that's how
it's tough. I mean,
but you guys happen to be some of the toughest players in the state. That's just hands down every year, whether there's offense or not. Let's talk about your line play this year, O-line and D-line. Who are the most key guys and underrated guys?
You know, honestly, both fronts, everybody's equally important this year. For the most part on offense, we stick to the same 5. We have Lavaya Ino, Sione Holani, Casey Nabadilla, Storm Capelliela. You know, those 4 for the most part they're holding us down, and there's really all 5 got to play well. I mean,
this is on the offensive side, right?
Offensive side. Defensively, we try to rotate 6. You know, we typically base out of a 3-man front, and we try to rotate 6. And like we tell them, I mean, you might not start the game, but that doesn't mean you're not a starter. You know, we depending on the second group of 3 to come in and execute just like the first group of 3 and try to keep, you know, bodies fresh and so everybody can play 4 quarters.
Yeah, that kind of depth. That's why the Rams keep signing these great defensive ends and tackles, because in the 4th quarter they come up with fumbles and strip sacks and pick sixes. That's my team, by the way. Your quarterback play last year was kind of a stunner, because the guy who won you the championship playing quarterback, you didn't ask him to do too much, but he could make the plays, and he wasn't a starter at the year before.
Yeah.
And he kind of got bumped into that situation. In your quarterback situation now, I think you mentioned like he's got some serious talent.
Kinda, he has talent. He has talent. You know, it's now the next step is, you know, how can we progress his IQ to match his level of just raw talent, and can we develop him? You know, can we develop his body to match his raw talent? Yeah. You know, so that's the next step. But you know, as an overall quarterback, he does have talent. It's just like our team. It's a process, and throughout the year he's gotten better, and you know, hopefully we can get him mentally ready for this game, so that hopefully he can have his best game on Saturday.
So Kahale was a big loss. Not that you don't have running backs, but senior at his peak, healthy, nice speed. Now at UH as a receiver, I think. So replacing him, was that something you did by committee, or you just kind of handed it to one guy and said,
yeah, no. I mean, it's something that we talked about coming into the year, and it wasn't really even replacing him at the running back position. You know, it was just replacing his overall production for our offense period. You know, I think he accounted for 35 touchdowns. So it would have been unfair for us to ask Kaeo Ramos, who's been doing a hell of a job for us this year, but it would have been unfair coming into the year, telling him, hey, you got to fill this void. You know, so that's not what we expected. That's not what we asked. We just said that, hey, we might have to approach the games a little bit differently this year. We might have to throw a little bit more and disperse the ball to our playmakers outside a little bit more. So it's not any one player stepping up. You know, it's got to be a collective effort, and for the most part, that's what it's been.
Yeah. And I remember last year, your guards were so good, they would pull. And they were pretty much as fast as a lot of running backs. And that was kind of like, if you see it coming, it's like, it's going to work, because you guys picked the timing of the calls. And they were so great at it. It was like the trump card, basically. So linebackers, to me, Hilo is a version of the old Penn State, right? Linebacker U. And Hilo, for me, has always had stud linebackers. So who are the key guys in there, and who gets kind of overlooked?
Well, right now, starting, we have Kalen White in the middle for us, and you know, he's really the heart and soul of this defense. So, you know, from a perspective of understanding what we're doing, being able to get players lined up, being able to make calls for us. So he anchors the middle, and rightfully so. He's a junior, and he does well for us. And then outside of him, he's flanked by Mana Price, who's a sophomore, and Lyle Silva, who's a freshman. So, hey, for the most part, it's a young group, but they're not very big, but they read their keys and they get after it. You know, they get after it, and they do what we ask. So we can't ask any more of that group.
It's interesting. It seems like football in Hawaii and across the country, the evolution is happening on the defensive side because of the offenses. And if you're a slow linebacker, they're going to target you. They're going to pick on you, and you won't be very effective if it's a good offense. So having smaller linebackers, but they bulldogs and make plays, that's plenty. So who's underrated in the secondary, and who's your key guy in the secondary?
Underrated, I would say, if I can pick out 2 underrated guys in our secondary, it's probably Kahiao Walker, who plays safety for us. You know, he's a senior. He started from his sophomore year, and you know, from a secondary perspective, he understands what we're doing, what we need, how to get us checked and whatnot to different formations. And then out in corner, Clayson Kaivi, a sophomore who came in July, and didn't know what we were doing, came from the mainland, came in, learned our system, solidified the corner spot opposite of Elijah Opao, and who's played Clayson has played very well for us. I think he had an interception against Maui. So we knew he'd be tested, but when he's been tested, for the most part, he's stepped up and played well.
Waipahu, similar in a lot of ways to your program. They try to do things the right way as far as discipline. They've had their share of AP, and now they're back to running the ball well and playing great defense. It might be the best defensive team they've had for years. When you see the video, do you see similarities with your team? Do you see them? Do they remind you of anybody?
I do. And our staff sees it as well. You know, our OC, you know, he basically said, "Hey, coach, this is basically our offense." And it is in many aspects. You know, the type of plays they run, the type of formations they run, is very similar. And they have a very good running back that you got to bottle up. You know, it just seems to be. You just, when you get to this stage in the season, you're just repeating yourself, you know, because that's what you're facing. You know, the running back is a hell of a runner. And then out wide, they got 24, they got 6, they got 82. They have a quarterback that's capable. He can deliver the ball. If he has the edge, he's going to get outside. He's going to make you pay with his legs. He seems to throw good on the run. You know, it's like deja vu. It's like looking at, you got to prepare for Damien last year all over again. There's playmakers on the field, and it's the state championship game, so you know, you don't really expect anything different than that.
How's the feeling? How's the vibe at practice? I mean, yesterday was Monday, so you just started the week. Is it similar to last year, or because they're so young, it's a little bit different?
No, I mean, you know, it's a little different. You know, it's a little bit younger group, but at the end of the day, you know, our message to them is this: you know, you can't take these games for granted. You can't take these opportunities for granted. You don't know when you're gonna make it back to the state championship game. That's your goal coming into the season. But so many things, even if you have a talented team, got to go right throughout the course of the season. So what you do is you approach every day as if that's the championship game in practice, and you have fun preparing, and you learn how to prepare correctly. So when you come to the game, man, you just try to read your keys and go play. So you're not thinking and you're not worried about making mistakes. Just go have fun.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. See you guys soon.